impossible has happened. Unbelievable. No record for human life. Off to the races. Can they catch it?
Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms. Bare-chested. Somebody stop
Look
that
out,
man.
here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here
They're
comes
coming
the
from
blue
the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
And now for our feature presentation.
Balls Deep with Devin Jovan.
Welcome back to Balls Deep. We're happy for you guys to join us. Recently, we talked about the NBA returning at the end of July at Disney World in Orlando. But since that episode, things have changed. Players have spoken out about not wanting to return due to the safety or just the fact that they don't want to interrupt essentially the current climate of what's going on in this country, just because they feel like it would be a distraction. And there's others that just don't feel like it's a good opportunity for them to return, essentially. So what are your thoughts, Jamal?
I was looking at a list of players that aren't going to play or have decided not to play. And a majority of the players are players that are either currently injured or are currently rehabbing from an injury.
Yeah.
Other than Davis Bertans from the Wizards, who has a history of ACL injuries. And he just had a good season. He's on a contract year. So that's one player that probably could make a difference for the Wizards, but at the same time, they're kind of on the outside looking in right now, and it's a long shot.
Yeah.
You got Trevor Ariza, who's having a dispute, custody dispute for his son.
Okay.
But aside from those two, it's mostly just a list of players that probably weren't going to play anyways, or a list of players that I feel like wouldn't really have made an impact on their team, other than maybe Avery Bradley for the Lakers, who just withdrew a few days ago. And also, like I said, a lot of the players that aren't sitting out, are a lot of big time players. Like LeBron, everybody's saying basically whatever LeBron decides to do is what we decided to do. We're gonna follow in those footsteps.
Yeah,
and they think it's a good idea.
That's what Patrick Beverly said.
Yeah, and they think it's a good idea for them to actually be on TV and playing games, because then they have a bigger platform to speak out on the injustices and things that's going on in the country. So I feel like, as much as it seems like the NBA season's in danger, I don't think there's much of a danger to it right now.
I think the only thing that's endangering the NBA season resuming would honestly just be the amount of cases of coronavirus that they have in Florida. I know they reopened. They were one of the few states to reopen first, and they're essentially facing their second wave of COVID-19. Others might say it's still the first, but the fact that it's stationed specifically in Disney World and they say it's in a bubble, but they have a window of people, like family members, able to come in and watch or come in to the bubble, might risk it. I know, I think it was today or yesterday, there was announced that Nikola Jokic just tested positive for coronavirus, and now Malcolm Brogdon just tested positive for coronavirus too. Those are two big players for playoff teams already. I know you mentioned Avery Bradley. He mentioned it because at first he had the stance of he didn't want to just make it be distracting to the current state of the country, because he felt like we needed all to focus on what's most important at hand. But recently I found out his son is actually has a history of having respiratory issues. So as a Laker fan, it sucks that he's not joining because he was a big part of what we've had going on. But I understand it's essentially the best decision for his family because his son wasn't going to be able to enter the bubble due to his history. So the fact that it's in his son's best interest and safety, you can't really hurt him for it. I know, like you said, there's a lot of it's more role players that are speaking out saying they don't want to return, or players that are at the lower end of the playoffs. But one player that is a big player is Kyrie Irving. He plays a big part in the NBA PA, and he mentioned talking about even going as far as having the players create their own league, which isn't as crazy as people make it seem, because it definitely can be done. Will it be done? I don't think so. But it definitely can be done if it comes to that stance.
It seems like Kyrie has a kind of, like, obviously no offense to Kyrie. I like Kyrie as a person and as a player, but it seems like he has a history, at least within the league, like the way people view him. He has like a history of like taking things like kind of an extra step that you don't really need, it feels like. And ultimately, like, the players do have a lot more power than they might give themselves credit for. And he's probably not crazy to think that they could start their own league. Yeah. But just to say it when you're not really first of all, he's injured. He has a shoulder injury, so he's not playing anyways.
Yeah, he said he's not coming.
So that's what I'm saying. So this really has no effect on him one way or the other than the fact that I do respect him because, he doesn't want to take, any like, he doesn't want to be a distraction from what's going on with all the protests and things like that. And I respect that. But I also, like I said, I just think being on TV and playing those games gives them a better platform to speak out on those things than not playing at all. Because not playing at all and not saying anything on TV is not really helping anybody.
And a lot of the players in the playoffs are predominantly black. A lot of players in the NBA are predominantly black. So giving the black community that amount of money or income, and the fact that they can donate all their income or most of their income to the cause at hand, it's only going to benefit everything. Even if they don't donate money, the fact that they say all eyes are going to be on the NBA, then use your platform to speak out. I know Adam Silver has always been in support of players speaking out on things like this. And I know Kyrie got a lot of backlash for what he said, but everyone thought it was because he was the only one thinking that like that. But he was actually speaking up for other players that were like-minded to him. So let's just see how it goes. I'm very optimistic that it will happen. It's going to be tough, but I think it will happen. I'm interested to see how it pans out. It should be very interesting. But like we said before, go Lakers. We're going to be missing Dwight Howard and Avery Bradley, but J.R. Swish, he's coming.
Boogie Cousins.
He might be coming.
The third splash, bro.
So that's that.
That's that on that. Move on to Colin Kaepernick's possible return. Commissioner Roger Goodell said that he welcomes that, encourages it, and any team willing to make that decision to sign him, he supports it. He's also saying that he's in solidarity with the players and kneeling and all that. So, what are you thinking about Kaepernick's return? How do you feel about it? What teams could you possibly see him playing for?
I mean, the first team that came to mind, obviously we know the Chargers has already reached out or mentioned it publicly. But Pete Carroll and the Seahawks were the first team I thought of. I know he was almost signed to them prior, but the fact that he didn't want to stop kneeling is what caused him not to be signed to the Seahawks. But Pete Carroll did speak out recently, and he said that a team actually did reach out to him about his interviews. Yeah. So someone is interested, and it happened to be the Chargers. The Chargers, or that we think of, is the Chargers. And the Chargers, Anthony Lynn, their head coach, is black. And we mentioned in the past, in order for more minorities to be in positions of power, it usually comes from minorities that are in those positions of power. So like Anthony Lynn being one of the only minority coaches, saying that he's going to give Colin Kaepernick opportunity just kind of speaks volumes in itself. It almost seems like the NFL isn't learning their lesson, even with the recent backlash. But Anthony Lynn, I commend him for coming out and saying that he is kind of workout worthy because he fits their system. However, it seems very contradicting because Cam Newton, who's also a free agent and has a similar play style, should be workout worthy as well. If he's talking about their system, however, they already came out before the draft and said that they weren't interested in signing Cam Newton, which I felt like was a perfect opportunity for Cam Newton. But back to Colin Kaepernick, I honestly would like to see him back in the league, but I really hope that he actually turns down these deals or offers because I just feel like it's too late. It's honestly too late.
Seems like almost like a publicity stunt for the NFL to just look better and for teams and owners to look better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just feel like they're gonna sign Colin Kaepernick. He might not even play, and they're gonna basically be like, "Well, we signed Colin Kaepernick, so we can't be against this movement, or we're in support of it." So I just feel like you said it's a publicity stunt, and it seems forced in a sense. So I just hope that he turns it down as much as he would love to play, and everyone would love to see him play. It doesn't really seem realistic, especially with the Chargers specifically. They just drafted Justin Herbert, so he might not even get a chance to play and prove himself, basically. So that's how I feel. But besides for it being a publicity stunt, what's your other thoughts on it?
It's kind of like the kneeling thing for me. It's like it almost seems like all the teams are like now agreeing to players kneeling or like, oh, get Kaepernick a job now. But it's like, why now? It's like it almost seems like only now because they're finally being held accountable is it like, oh, let's do this now. Oh, just because they're being held accountable, you should do it regardless. That's what really bothers me is like is all these companies and all these, in general, just doing things because they're finally being held accountable. So it's kind of the same thing with like the NFL and kneeling and Kaepernick. But I'd love to see him in the NFL just because it's something that he's expressed that he's been ready for years. And clearly football means a lot to him. So I would love for him to play just based off that alone, regardless of, whether it's a publicity or stunt or not. If he gets the opportunity to play on the field, which he loves to do, I'd love to see it. I know you mentioned the Chargers. Two teams that I thought were pretty good are like the Ravens or Texans. Similar QB styles, similar schemes. I don't know that he's going to start if he comes into the league. So a team like that would be perfect fit for, if Lamar Jackson goes down or if, Deshaun Watson goes down, or even if they want to run like a 2 QB scheme like they do over in New Orleans. But another place that I think would be good for him to actually get an opportunity to start is Jacksonville.
Yes, for sure.
It's a small market team, so obviously it's Kaepernick. There's going to be attention regardless, but it's a lot less attention. Also, the fact that it gives him a better opportunity to start, and it gives the Jags a better opportunity to compete now.
And bring fans.
Yeah, and rather than, wait for Minshew to kind of develop. Even though he had a great season last year, not taking that away from him.
I wouldn't say great. I'd say
good season. Good season for a rookie. Good season for a rookie. You're right. Well, like I said, it gives him an opportunity to start and compete for a job, an actual starting job, and it also, it allows the Jags to be competitive sooner rather than later. And get something going, small picture while they work on, Minshew. But also, I think the fact that Khan, the owner of the Jags, has also spoke out on his own problems and dealing with like social injustices and racism.
Kind of minority.
Kind of like what you said, it takes a minority in a position of power to get, a person in certain positions sometimes. So that's another place I could see him going. Yeah,
you mentioned the Ravens. The Ravens are a good opportunity, especially with his former offensive coordinator being there. It seems like it's a perfect fit. Jacksonville, I think, would be a great opportunity for him to show what he's capable of. But I just think with Cam Newton being on the market, I think that's actually a better fit for Cam. Yeah. Just because he's able to do a lot more with less than Kaepernick, or that we've seen at least with Kaepernick, because Kaepernick, when he played, had a stacked team. But outside of the Chargers, or even the Ravens, or Jacksonville, or even the Seahawks, I just hope that he gets a fair chance. If he does return, give him a fair chance. I don't want to see him returning if he's not given a fair chance, and that's all I ask for. If this is a bullshit publicity stunt, I hope he sees it for what it is, and he just ultimately turns it down. But that's that. We're gonna actually move on and talk about what's next for Dak Prescott now that he signed his franchise tag or franchise tender due to it being exclusive. I know the deadline is coming up on July 15th. Specifically for franchise tag players to sign long-term extensions. What's your thoughts on it?
It's not much thought for me to go about it. I mean, I feel like the Cowboys and Dak seem still so far apart on the issue. They were saying, obviously, they have, like you said, till July 15th to come to an agreement, or he plays this year on a 1-year tender. But the Cowboys want 5 years, whereas Dak would prefer 4. He wants to be a free agent again when he's 30. And also, I was reading reports that if he were to do a 5th year, that throughout the contract, he wants $45 million added throughout. It doesn't have to be front-loaded, back-loaded. Throughout the contract, he wants an added bonus of $45 million for the extra year.
Yeah.
So on top of that 35, he'd probably be getting paid for the 5th and final year.
So basically, he's looking for the Cowboys to compromise if he gives them what they want.
Yeah, and so he's looking for a $35 million price tag, whereas the Cowboys were closer to $30 million, $32 million.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like the sides are really far apart. I'm curious to see where it goes in the future, if they could actually even get it. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get a deal done. I think they'd be dumb not to, because as much as I don't think Dak is that great, I think he's good enough with what they have to get them where they want to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, if I'm them, I spend the money, because I think he's the piece that he's good on. Like I said, he's good enough with what you've gave him to bring you to the promised land. Like I said, although I don't think he's that great a quarterback.
Yeah.
But with what he has, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys, in terms of talent, has always been stacked. I mean, Jerry seems to be able to collect talent. They just seem to always underperform, or something goes wrong. That's just how it goes with the Cowboys in a sense. But for me, before all this went down, I said he shouldn't get paid. I mean, he should get paid approximately what Jared Goff got paid. I do think he's better than Jared Goff. Jared Goff got overpaid. Dak's going to get overpaid no matter what. So if the Cowboys are smart, they'll get a deal done sooner rather than later. I mean, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes still have to sign a contract. So you want to sign him before they get signed, because he's going to then ask for more money. What they're going off of now is Carson Wentz. But the difference is Carson Wentz wasn't franchise tagged, and he still had an extra year on his deal because of him being a first-round pick. But Dak, he was a mid-round pick, so he had a one year less on his rookie deal, which is forcing them to franchise tag him. Yeah.
I'd much rather pay him Wentz money than Mahomes or fucking Watson money.
For sure.
So
especially with his
smart
durability.
to do it right now.
Yeah, especially with his durability. I know from sources that have been reported, like you said, Cowboys won 5 years. Dak wants 4 because he wants to hit the market a lot sooner. But what's on the table from the Cowboys would make him the second highest paid quarterback behind Russell Wilson's $35 million annually. But in terms of guaranteed cash, it would be on par to Jared Goff's $110 million that he received. However, the specifics to that contract aren't out. They're unknown currently. I'm sure there's some sort of twist in this contract. I know they resigned Amari Cooper and the contract seemed big, but when I looked at the specifics, nothing is guaranteed, which is wild to me. I don't know what kind of agent would sign that kind of deal, So I'm sure Jerry Jones and his manipulative ways are somewhere trying to get loopholes like that in Dak's contract to get him for cheap, or if they have to part ways, they can. But
off that contract.
I think Dak honestly holds all the cards in the situation. They franchise tagged him now, which is at least $31.4 million for this year. If they don't come to an agreement, and let's say, I think his worth is going to just get higher, especially with Mahomes and Deshaun Watson still
100%.
having to sign. But even if they don't sign and you just focus on his production, I think his production is only going to get better, especially with the weapons that he has. So if they franchise tag him again, he's going to at least get $37.7 million next year. And then if they decide to franchise him again, he's going to get like $50 million a year. So it's basically going to be a 3-year deal for like $123 million. Which is wild.
They're better off just offering him what he wants now.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Giving him buku bucks later.
So Dallas's back is against the wall. In my opinion, Dak holds all the cards. I do think a deal will be struck before July 15th. Like, for example, the Zeke situation, they got a deal done closer to week 1 when he was threatening to sit out. Dak's not doing that. But now that they have the franchise tag and the deadline, I think a deal will be struck closer to the July 15th date. It'll be more in the favor of Dak than the Cowboys. So maybe the Cowboys do give him the extra $45 million he's asking for the extra 5th year, if they really want that extra 5th year. Yeah. But I think Dak holds all the weight he holds within this kind of stare down or whatever you want to call it. So I think the Cowboys need to stop playing with this guy. I mean, he's been super durable and has done what he needs to at the quarterback position for the Cowboys. He's not, like you said, he hasn't been great, but he's done good enough, and they've only gotten better in terms of talent. So this season, honestly, I think will determine how good he is, or determine how good this team is, because they have all the talent. They play in the NFC East, which is
the worst division in football right now,
according to record. Yes. I think it's the most competitive, just because
year in and year out, maybe. But as of late, it's been terrible.
Yeah. So I think this is their best chance of winning a Super Bowl. So sign this man, put him on pen to paper, and just get it over with. Your best chance of winning the Super Bowl is now. It's been 20 plus years. Jerry needs to take his thumb out of his ass and just pay up. He paid up for all these other dudes. Why are you holding back on your quarterback?
The biggest position in football, and he's making them wait.
Yeah, I know. I think if it was Tony Romo, though, he would have been signed already.
He would have been done.
So, Jerry, I know you haven't spoke up about this current state of the country, and I know Stephen A. Smith's been calling you out on it. But you're just looking even worse now with your black quarterback having to beg you for money because he's essentially the face of your franchise, which is kind of, and he's a stand-up citizen thus far. He hasn't really got in trouble. So
he's been a very great person on and off the field, a great model. Somebody you want to play quarterback. Like I said, he's not by any means like the most crazy quarterback. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Drew Brees. But he gets the job done. When you put the talent around him, he wins the games. And that's really all you need.
Yeah, so Jerry, I know the reason why they're on this 20-plus year hiatus is because you don't want to give up control, but sign this man. Sign him. Because if not, you're going to just pay in the end, and it's going to come more money out of your back pocket, which we know you don't want to give up. So that's that. We're going to go on to additional NFL news.
We say to America is be true to what you said on paper. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
One more balls deep. We're gonna go into Jamal Adams' trade request. Jamal Adams came out with a list of 7 teams that he wants to go to the New York Jets. It's the Ravens, Cowboys, Chiefs, 49ers, Seahawks, Texans, and Eagles. And also Ryan Clark says he spoke to Adams and said he also wouldn't mind going to Tampa. So what do you think about, Jamal Adams' current situation in New York?
Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about that Tampa news.
Yeah.
They're in win now mode, so it wouldn't surprise me that they go out and get Jamal Adams. I think the Jets would be stupid to kind of give Brady another Super Bowl ring, basically after all the fucking ass raping he's been doing in the AFC all these years. So he already ripped them a good one for decades, so why give him another ring, But the Jets have just handled this Adams situation very poorly. Kind of playing games with my one of my favorite safeties in the league. He's deserving of his money. Just pay the man. You don't have to, run circles around him. However, with the list of teams that he did put out, it's a reasonable list. I mean, they all seem to be win now mode, almost one asset or one player away from a championship. They all seem to have the future quarterback in place. So he clearly wants to go to a winning team. He's tired of the Jets and their losing ways because the Giants run New York.
He's in win now mode.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to go to a winner.
And he's been publicly about his desire to go to Dallas because he's from Texas and he wants to be a Cowboy. I'm sure he grew up a Cowboy fan.
That's why Houston's also on that list.
Yeah. Who really wants to go to Houston? But
Jamal Adams.
he just put Houston for the fact that they're in Texas and he can't go to the Cowboys. He has the Texans. However, they do have Deshaun Watson, so they do have a opportunity to do something bright if Bill O'Brien doesn't shoot them in the foot even more than he has.
He might with this Jamal Adams trade he's about to make. So about to give up the rest of the assets for Jamal Adams.
Yes.
Deshaun Watson.
So amongst those teams, he did mention the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the ideal fit for him. I think it's the best place for him due to them already. Well, the secondary being the biggest issue for them in years past, and the fact that they've already added Darius Slay to that secondary to help the corners, and the fact that Malcolm Jenkins' departure this offseason, he can step into that Malcolm Jenkins role and be the leader of the secondary along with Darius Slay. And he's ultimately an upgrade from Malcolm Jenkins regardless. But the fact that his versatility, and in Philly they have Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator, he can get very creative with Jamal Adams' versatility. And I think all in all, it's going to help them because their pass rush, they've been looking for a pass rusher too, which is ultimately something that he can do. He can add to that pass rush and help them out essentially because he's good in coverage. He can go up against tight ends in coverage. He can go in the box and essentially make rush pass decisions ultimately, like if options in zone. And then he could be in the box and blitz. He can help with pass rushing. And similarly, that's why I think he's a good fit for the Seahawks as well. Because the Seahawks, they want Clowney to come back. But their secondary has been ass, which is why they went and got Diggs last year from the Lions. He ultimately helped them with their secondary for the end of the season. But that secondary hasn't been the same since the departure of Earl Thomas and the injury of Cam Chancellor. So they still got Bobby Wagner in the middle of that defense, and maybe if they don't even bring back Clowney and they bring in Everson Griffin, it's something. And he can essentially help with that pass rush as well with his versatility. 49ers are always an option too. It's a division rival to the Seahawks. They just had a really good season last season. Their defense was best in the league, or one of the best in the leagues. They built their defense from the front seven.
Yeah.
But ultimately in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs exposed their secondary for what it was essentially. And the reason why I think the 49ers would be perfect, they're essentially one piece away from winning a Super Bowl. They already went there, and it was their secondary's fault. And the coaches played offensive play decisions on the reason why they lost. But the fact that their Tart is set to be a free agent next season, along with Sherman, Kwan Williams, and Akelo Witherspoon. Excuse me. Why not go get him now? You might have one season with all of them. And if you get rid of, let's say, Tart or Sherman, who is aging, or somebody, you can always add a piece, but you'll have an anchor in Jamal Adams to help that secondary, even if you lose pieces. So I think that's a reasonable chance too. The only thing, like with the Eagles, salary-wise, it might not work out. And similar to the Texans, it can't happen. But I just think they're missing too many assets because they gave up so much.
I feel like
assets.
that's the biggest issue with Jamal Adams in general, kind of. Is the contract. Obviously, this is a guy that earned himself big money.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teams that he did list aren't really doing well in terms of cap space.
For sure.
That's why for me, I feel like the only bright side for those teams is the fact that he's under contract until 2021. So the fact that he's on a team that he wants to be on might, shy him away from, the contract being like a rush deal. He might be willing to wait that extra year for more money if he's in a place where he's happy. So I do think Dallas is probably the best fit. Obviously, they have their whole Dak situation to figure out first. But they already offered a first-round pick at the end of the deadline last year for him. So, and they obviously have a really good team. Their secondary is probably the weakest part of their team. And I think that's probably a piece that brings them closer to a championship. And I think if you have a guy like Jamal Adams to anchor down your defense, and like I said, you signed Dak, you already put more weapons around him in the last year and a half. The Cowboys could win a Super Bowl with Jamal Adams. So they'd be dumb not to inquire about it. Like I said, I believe they were saying the asking price is 2 first-rounders with a 4th, which is what the Jets wanted, which is a reach, but
I don't think that's
considering what Jacksonville got for Jalen Ramsey, it's really not that bad, like you said.
It's also a corner versus safety.
Definitely. But you also got a guy in Jamal Adams who's a lot more versatile than Jalen Ramsey is.
Yeah, you're right.
So like I said, I think the Cowboys feel like the most likely option because aside from their whole contract dispute with Dak, they have all the assets to offer if they want to make that trade. Yeah. It's just figuring out the money at that point afterwards.
For me, obviously they got to figure out the Dak situation first. I don't really see the Cowboys as an ideal situation. He wants to go there, and
because it's Dallas, yeah.
Because it's Dallas, and everyone who goes to Dallas gets paid. But since them offering that first-round pick at the deadline, they also signed a lot more players to contract extensions, which means they have less money to kind of dispose or at their disposal. But for me, Jerry Jones has the history of not wanting to pay safeties. He seems to prioritize other positions more than safeties. They already have Clinton Dix that they signed in free agency. I don't really see them going out and giving up more than what they offered last year for Jamal Adams. I don't think what Jets are asking for is reasonable because I don't think they're going to end up getting that. Yeah. 2 first-round picks might be a reach, and I know you said a 4th. Maybe a first-round pick and a third
or second.
Or a third that turns into a second if they don't get into the top 10 or something. Something like that is more realistic. I'm not giving all that up in terms of assets unless I'm one player away. So unless you're one of these teams,
ultimately, I think the team that fits that the best is the Ravens because right now they're tight in cap space, but after this 2020 season in 2021 they have I believe $65 million in cap space afterwards. So obviously they have a lot of young talent that in the future they're gonna have to pay. But that's something that they can worry about down the road. Obviously,
I tell you this: if the Ravens get Jamal Adams,
Very
they're already a problem, and the secondary is already
very
the best in the league, arguably. If you get Jamal Adams and you pair him with Earl Thomas and
I think
all the other corners,
I think they're the most likely situation
You
with
might-
all the cap space they acquire next year, with the team they have. Obviously a surprise loss in the playoffs to the Titans last year. Shout out to the Titans, but that's a team they could have beat. They could have beat any team in that entire playoffs, and they just didn't. A player like Jamal Adams, a very outspoken and like a great leader in the locker room, a player like that to anchor down your defense that's already bolstered.
Scary.
I think they'd be a heavy favorite.
you might as well just walk up to Lamar Jackson and give him a ring right there. But
Maybe so.
I think pairing him with Earl Thomas, it would be ridiculous in terms of on the field production. But the fact that Earl Thomas is basically at the end of his career, he could almost mentor Jamal Adams.
Not only that, but the fact that you have so many guys on one defense that can play in so many different areas.
And even if you're they're known for creating pass rush, regardless of who they have. But the fact that you would essentially lock up everybody on the field and give your pass rush so much time to get to the quarterback is ridiculous. Like, they bolstered their run defense because of what happened against the Titans, but their pass rush wasn't terrible. But even if that is the weakest point in the game, you lock up everybody, you're going to have so much time to get to them.
I think they're already the best team on paper. I just don't.
Oh, for sure.
It's crazy how much scary putting Jamal Adams back there would make that team.
And similar situation too. I know you might touch on this, but like the Chiefs, you pair him with Tyrann Matthew.
The Chiefs with me for me is tough. I think it would obviously be ideal to pair him with Tyrann Matthew, but they have very little cap room.
Yeah,
they have $6.2 million. And that's why, for me, the Chiefs don't seem ideal at all, and they seem like a real long shot.
Yeah,
they have $6.2 million. You have a guy under center, Patrick Mahomes, that you have to pay like $50 million a year.
Yeah,
there's no way you're going to pay Jamal Adams that kind of money.
I was just speaking of pairing him with Tyrann Matthew, similar to pairing him with Earl Thomas. I know financially is not realistic, and
that's where I kind of leaned when I was looking. I was like what's going to fit, not just scheme wise, but who's going to be able to pay this guy? Because you're going to have to pay him.
Yeah, I think Jamal Adams will have a similar impact to Tyrann Matthew's impact on the Chiefs. When he went to the Chiefs, he bolstered that defense. The Chiefs were not one player away defensively, but he did what he had to do to essentially make them or help them go to the Super Bowl and ultimately win it. I think if he goes to a similar situation, maybe like we mentioned, the Seahawks, whose defense is similar or at a stature similar to what the Chiefs were before he came, or the Tyrann Matthews came. Yeah. So that similar situation to that, or even the Eagles, like those situations, I feel like he can have a Tyrann Matthews impact.
Definitely. I think I'd love to see him on the Ravens, personally.
I'd love to see him on any other team outside of the NFC East. I do not want to face him. I know the Giants faced the Jets, and
no Cowboys, no Eagles,
and he ultimately just ripped out the ball like that from Devin Jovan. So please stay away. I don't want to deal with you twice a year. We already got to deal with Chase Young. So that's that. Now we're actually going to move on to one of our near and dear favorite players. I know I became a Giants fan not only because my dad was a Giants fan, but I also started watching football and became a huge fan when this guy was drafted. Eli Manning.
They're retiring his jersey.
Yeah.
Ole Miss. They're retiring Eli Manning's jersey from Ole Miss, number 10, on September 19th against Auburn. He's only the third player in school history besides his father, Archie, and Chucky Mullins, numbers 18 and 38. He finished the Ole Miss career with 10,119 passing yards, 81 touchdowns, both still currently school records. He also set records for completions with 829 and pass attempts for 1,363, along with 47 other single-season and game records while he attended there. He has a Maxwell Award for being the best player in college, a Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. He's a SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team SEC All-American, second team All-American, and third in 2003 Heisman voting. And he's also the highest draft pick in Ole Miss history, being selected overall number 1 by the Chargers. Shouts out to Eli.
Yep.
Congrats to Eli.
Congrats. It's definitely, I know he mentioned on Twitter it was an honor. It was a surprise. It surprised him with his family during quarantine, which is pretty dope. I was happy to see it. Definitely can't get any more awkward than Eli Manning. But his accolades just speak for itself on why he was drafted number 1. I know his NFL career really doesn't have anything to do with his number being retired, but soon, like in his retirement speech, John Mara basically said no one will ever wear number 10. So his number is essentially retired now, but officially it will be retired soon with the Giants. His NFL career, people will debate on whether he's a Hall of Famer or not. Me and Jovan personally think he is a Hall of Famer. Outside the 2 Super Bowls, he was the Super Bowl MVP for both of those. People don't give him credit or enough credit for those 2 Super Bowls. They kind of underestimate what he did. So now that we have the platform to say it, I'm going to sit here and tell you that my man, Eli Manning, is a Hall of Famer. His 2 Super Bowls and Super Bowl MVPs and his sustained success within his career will garner him a spot in Canton, Ohio one day.
I agree.
One day.
It's a no-brainer for me. I don't think it's debatable.
Yeah, I mean, his prime years, to me, were wasted by the front office, specifically Jerry Reese. He should have been fired long before he actually did.
Hold him accountable.
So it was ultimately because his lackluster offensive line and his bad defense. Yeah, everyone always talks about our rotation at pass rush, but outside of that, we were terrible in terms of defense. Like, just for example, in his 16-year career, Eli Manning never missed a game due to his injury, as we know. But he was only sacked less than 25 times, 5 out of those 16 seasons. One of those seasons was last season when he was the backup to Daniel Jones and only played a total of 4 games. So if you go down to 15 seasons, he was only sacked less than 25 times, 4 times. So that's pretty ridiculous. It goes as high as 47 times that he was sacked in one season. Terrible.
He had some pretty bad old lines.
With all that, he still had a 1.5 touchdown to interception ratio his entire career. It's positive, so you can't really argue that. And then 11 out of his 16 seasons, he posted at least an 80 quarterback rating, one of which was last season. But
first ballot.
And he also has 5 seasons where
has
5 seasons where he has a 90 plus quarterback rating. But as a career, he has 82.7. But specifically, he just holds the best individual season by any other NFC East quarterback of the decade. For example, the 2011 season, he was the catalyst of that 2011 Super Bowl run. People don't give him enough credit because everyone tries to give that pass rush all the credit. But that specific season, he definitely carried the Giants all season long because the Giants had the worst running back or the worst running game that season in the NFL, and we had a bottom 6 defense.
So no more saying the defense carried him.
Yes.
Because that did not happen.
So he carried us to the playoffs, and when it came to the playoffs, he outplayed the MVP of that season, which was Aaron Rodgers, in one of those playoff games that he won. He actually posted a 90-plus Pro Football Focus grade under the most pressure of any quarterback in the NFL that season. He had 4,933 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. He had 15 fourth-quarter touchdowns, which is an NFL record, just that season alone. And he had 6 fourth-quarter comebacks. And in the postseason alone, he had 1,219 passing yards, which is an NFL playoff record. My man is a Hall of Famer, and he's deserving of his credit.
Not to mention they stopped Tom Brady from getting 1 million rings.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's why he holds a grudge against Eli Manning, because Eli Manning, it wasn't for Eli Manning, Tom Brady would, what does he have now? 5?
Yeah.
Or no, I think he has 6. So he'd have 8.
He has too many.
So if it wasn't for Eli Manning, Tom Brady would pretty much have a decade's full of rings. So thank you, Eli, for being one of the greatest Giants players ever. I only place you behind Lawrence Taylor in terms of talent, but in terms of on and off the field, you were a model citizen, a model player.
Probably the most consistent in history in terms of being a Giants player.
Everyone wants to hold his career record against him, but he can't play offense and defense. He did what he had to do for the most part.
Off the field issues.
Nope. He didn't. He never really had a consistent environment, especially after Tom Coughlin left. And
he did it in New York.
Yeah.
The hardest place to do it.
So I give him his credit, give him his dues. In college, NFL, he did what he had to do. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. He's deserving of his number to be retired, both in college and in the NFL. So all we can both say is thank you. We appreciate you. And good luck in your future endeavors. I know you talked about coaching your daughter's basketball team, but that's that. So we're going to move on.
Moving on now to the NFL and NCAA football seasons, possibly being in jeopardy. A lot of players out of Houston, Dallas, Tampa have been tested positive. Zeke being one of them for the Dallas Cowboys. 15 Texas players tested positive for coronavirus. Like Devin mentioned earlier, all these states opening, second waves hitting, a lot of people are starting to test positive, and some of them happen to be big name athletes that might have an effect on our football season as we know it. So, how are you feeling?
I just cut them off. No one cares about them Cowboys or the Houston Texans. And now it's the Tampa Bay Bucks too. Screw you guys. At least
Brady still
at least Brady won't get another ring. But all jokes aside, it'd be hurtful if they honestly just ended the season or not had one at all. Everyone seems to be optimistic about the NFL season just because it doesn't start till later in the year. So I'm going to stay optimistic. I mean, my Giants, I didn't have Super Bowl aspirations this season at least. So at least
not for the next
gives us another year.
Not for the next couple.
Gives us another year under our belts, get over this. But I just really hope that we have an NFL season just so that we have some entertainment throughout the year, just with all these sports being cut off, or at least part of the seasons being cut off. But in terms of college football, I think I'm more optimistic about the NFL season happening than the college football season happening. I know high school football is definitely probably not going to happen, especially in Connecticut. We might get lucky. But I think in terms of the college football, they either won't have one at all or they'll limit it to, let's say, the power schools.
And divisional.
Yeah.
And conference games, I should say.
Yeah, so I think they might limit it to conference games and then ultimately have the power schools like Bama, LSU, and ultimately have their seasons. But didn't Clemson have a lot of people?
I'm not sure. I'm not too sure about Clemson.
But I think if a power school like Clemson were to get these,
they would end the season.
I wouldn't say end it because I think if Bama got it, I think Bama would shut down the college football.
Oh, for
season.
Sure. But as of late, Clemson's been a lot bigger.
Oh yeah, for sure. But Bama's just Bama. So I think that's why if Bama were to have it, season's over. It's a wrap. No, but Clemson, it's gonna then push them to figure something out. And they might even have to do something similar to the NBA where they have fields stationed for certain games because all this traveling, I think, it's just terrible. It's not a good idea for not spreading this COVID-19.
Yeah.
So they would have to ultimately pick 2 locations, maybe a few locations that are closer together where no one really would have a home field advantage. So I just think they're going to have to do something because it doesn't seem very optimistic for the college football season.
Yeah, I think college football is definitely a long shot compared to the NFL. I don't know how well it's going to sit with people that these student athletes are not even able to go into their classes but are on the football field or, other sports in general. But so there's that. And not only that, but when you have nearly not an entire team because the rosters are big, but when you have 15 players from one school, that's kind of alarming. And I feel like that's gonna keep the NCAA, that's gonna shy them away from trying to go on with this season. I honestly think they might just pull the plug. But if they do decide to go on, it's gonna be like you said. It's gonna be just interconference games, and when playoff time comes, obviously that'll have to be decided on how to do that. But it seems like a long shot. Whereas in the NFL, all I really needed to hear was a report from Adam Schefter saying he talked to somebody within the league and saying believe the NFL, believe in them, because I guess they're testing and sanitizing. They're taking it very serious.
Their protocols.
Yeah, and the protocols they have in order are really good. So he was almost basically saying don't worry about the season, regardless of who catches it and who gets sick. That will be taken care of in a way where it doesn't affect the NFL season and it doesn't affect other players as well.
And also, I think the NFL players, the fact that they have a salary is they're more willing to play. Whereas the NCAA, they're not getting paid. And I know starting next year, they're going to allow them to get some kind of income off their name and likeliness. But I think, they're trying to fight to get a salary at one point. But the fact that they're not getting paid now, I think a lot of players or their families are not going to want them to go out and risk it.
They're less likely to go want to play.
Exactly. So hopefully we have a season for both. But the protocols for NCAA aren't up to par with the NFL. So let's just hope and be optimistic.
It's a long shot, but we'll see.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about what is for sure happening. So it recently just came to an agreement. The MLB and that MLBPA finalized terms for a shortened 60-game regular season beginning either July 23rd or 24th. So at the end of July, we should have baseball and basketball back, seems like. So according to reports, spring training will happen starting July 1st, so players would have to report. 40 of those 60 games would then come from divisional opponents, and then 20 of those games would come from their geographic counterpart. So the AL East would play the NL East, and so forth. There would be extended roster, so a 30-player roster to open the season. And then as the season goes on, it would drop to 26, which is the original. Universal DH will be incorporated, which I've always been in favor, but not many people have. They like the difference in the NL and the AL.
It's actually kind of better.
This rule is kind of weird, but I understand. So a runner on second base will start extra innings. And it's weird because I don't really like it, but I see where they're coming from with the shortened season. They don't want a 15-inning game to happen just because they're going to have these games so compressed to get it done and over with. They don't want to risk injury. The deadline, instead of being in the end of July, it's at the end of August. Players tested for COVID-19. Players will be tested for COVID-19 every other day, which the protocol seems to be very frequent. And the playoff format is going to remain the same. So it's going to be 5 qualifying teams each from each league. What are your thoughts on those new rules and maybe anything else you might want to add?
I think this whole shortened season adds a whole lot. I feel like, honestly, the really good teams got way better and the really bad teams got a lot worse. Just based off the amount of games they're playing.
Okay.
I feel like, those short-term injuries now are basically almost your entire season. If you're out 4 to 8 weeks for whatever it might be, bleak, you're gonna miss nearly the entire season if you're out, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be tough for players like, or for teams that aren't as deep as say the Yankees or the Dodgers or even the Nationals. How are they gonna be able to compete when one person goes down? And also come playoff time or deeper in the season, or when teams are fighting for a playoff spot late in this 60-game season, pitchers are going to be fresh. You're going to be seeing pitchers come in a lot earlier in playoff series, than they normally would. The aces, obviously, is what I'm speaking of. Using them later on in the series if you really need them, they're going to be able to do that because pitchers aren't playing full seasons now. Their arms are going to be fresh. They're going to be, as long as they come into the season in great shape. I mean, like that's what I say. Like teams with the rotations that the Yankees or the Nationals have, it's going to be insane for them. It's almost unfair.
Yeah.
And other than that, I read that they're going to be basically getting paid what's called a full pro rata salary, meaning they're going to get paid full salary for the games that they are playing.
Yeah.
It's a regular playoff. I know the issue was they were trying to decide whether the players wanted 70 games, the MLB wanted 60 games. I didn't really understand why be so hung up on 10 games for either side. I think the MLB or even the players should have been fine with 10 more or 10 less games. I really don't know what goes into that. So, but other than that,
I know the MLB was trying to take part of their salary. And the most recent one before they actually finalized an agreement was they offered 60 games, but they wanted expanded playoffs. Players didn't want to expand the playoffs, which is why they disagreed. And then the MLB essentially forced the 60-game rule, and basically just told them what they wanted to hear is they gave them when and where to report. And I think all in all, it took a while to come to an agreement, but I think what happened or what they came to an agreement on is probably what's best for the league itself. As a Yankee fan, I'm excited.
Like I said, those teams that are at the top, it gives them a huge advantage because they're so much more deep. And not only that, but you have obviously a team like the Yankees who have been banged up and have players just now coming back. And who have players coming back, and like I believe you mentioned to me earlier, obviously off camera, Paxton is coming back, and then you have guys like Judge who is working with a nagging injury. So it's stuff like that I feel like it gives teams that already have so much talent just like a way bigger upper hand, such a big advantage. I don't know how much of a difference because I don't think you're gonna see much of a difference from the teams on the top. I mean, those teams that are, have the talent are going to win on a full-length season or a short-length season anyways. But it just kind of makes it so much easier for them.
I think for the teams at the lower end of the spectrum, it's going to be harder for them because a lot of their young talent, they're not going to be able to get the exposure or the experience because they don't have those extra games.
Yeah.
The one thing that surprised me was they ended the season this past season. They ended it or showed the standings of what it would look like or the playoff picture would look like after 60 games. And the Nationals, who won the World Series, wouldn't have made the playoffs. So that just says a lot on how much those extra games matter. The Nationals had a better second half of the season than they did first, and it showed that why they made the playoffs and also made the push to win the World Series. If it was a 60-game season, they wouldn't even have the opportunity to win it. Yeah. So that was one thing that surprised me on how much those extra games mattered. But as a Yankee fan, like I mentioned before, I'm excited for the 60 games. Just because, like you mentioned, Paxton's coming back because he was supposed to miss time, but now with the short season and it being pushed back, he should be healthy. Judge, he's not going to miss as much games if he does miss anything because he's had this time to recover. But their route to the World Series is going to be, to me, easy. Because who's in our division is going to compete with us. Obviously, they're division games, so they're always up for grabs. But the Red Sox last season, terrible.
Their pitching is nowhere right
yeah,
now.
and they got rid of Mookie Betts, which was their best player. The Rays, honestly, I think would be our best competition within the division.
They stay consistent, but they don't really threaten.
Yeah,
they did last year.
They didn't really take that extra step in the offseason. Yeah, they didn't really take that extra step in the offseason to be scared that they'll take the division. The Orioles and Blue Jays, they're in basically rebuilding mode. They have promising young players, but they're not going to compete for the playoffs. And then we would play the NL East, and the only teams I see from the NL East that can really give us a run for our money is the Braves and the Nationals.
The Mets is a sleeper.
The Mets and the Phillies both have talent, but are they World Series contenders? I mean, we only played them at least
4 times.
At least 4 times.
Yeah.
So, I think we're talking about possibly us playing the Mets 6 times.
Okay.
So, just because they're like
close, they're in New York.
They're rivals, but they're not in the same league.
Okay. You don't have to travel far.
Yeah, so interleague rivals.
Going on.
Yeah, so facing them at least 4 times, these teams, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you win. Let's say you win all 40 of your games from your division. Not likely to happen, but let's say that's 40 of your 60 games, and you could lose the other 2 or other 20, be 40 and 20, and I'm pretty sure that someone will enter the playoffs with a 40 and 20 record. Obviously, you don't want a 40 and 20 record because you'll probably be on the cusp. But I think the Yankees will also have a better record than 40 and 20. But it's doable. I mean,
it's gonna be an interesting season
for sure. I mean, there's definitely going to be those challenges that we mentioned in the past, and even indoor, like chemistry is not going to be as built because you don't have those extra games too. So, but as
teams got to hit the ground running.
Yeah, those teams that hit slumps, those slumps are going to be a big chunk of your season now, compared to like years past where maybe it was only a small part of the season that you had it, because 2 weeks of a slump is a lot bigger chunk for this season.
It's the same as, like I said, with injuries. You're out 4 to 8 weeks. That's a big chunk of your season.
So, like you said before, those big teams, it doesn't really affect them. Those smaller ones, it does.
I think it affects big teams more so when you come to playoff time. When you get playoff time, that's where it affects those big teams.
And I think it helps out a team like the Astros.
Definitely.
Especially with everything that went on in the offseason.
Well, I think what helps them the most is trash cans.
Well, they're going to have less animosity with the shortened season than those if we had a full season. Yeah. Also, like someone like the Yankees pitcher Jovan, who's suspended for
Domingo Germán.
Yeah, he's suspended for basically a full season worth. Now he's going to be suspended for games going into next season because he was an idiot and decided to have a domestic violence case. But in another...
Don't put your hands on women.
No. I mean, but people that are suspended or facing suspensions, it impacts them too, because now it impacts their following season. Instead of being able to jump right in and begin the season, they're going to miss time as well and then have to then get a groove when they do return. So he might miss 2 seasons, it looks like, or because I'm pretty sure Yankees won't let him return at the end of the following season unless we absolutely need him. So players like that, it impacts teams, those big teams, if they have a player suspended and that was supposed to return but isn't going to due to the short season. So I'm just happy baseball's back and all these sports are returning, especially by the end of July.
Go Yanks.
Go Yankees. As a sports fan, I'm ecstatic. We've been deprived of sports. This podcast, the content's only going to get better with sports returning or more sports returning, because I know soccer is just hitting the ground running.
We have Champions League coming up
with their return. So I'm excited for what's to come. I don't know if if you have anything to add before we close out here.
That's pretty much it. I'm just excited that we're starting to get things coming back. Obviously, like he said, the content's only gonna get better because we're gonna have more things to talk about as more seasons come back, as things start to seem more normal. We're not saying that things are normal, but obviously they start to feel more normal when you get certain things that come back. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of stuff to watch, a lot of stuff to keep up with, and a lot of content for you guys. So that's all we have for you this week, though. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at BallsDeep_pod on Instagram and Twitter. BallsDeep_pod on Facebook.
No, just Balls Deep Pod.
Oh, Balls Deep, vice versa.
No, BallsDeep_pod on Instagram and Twitter, and then Balls Deep Pod on Facebook.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. It's all right. Just make sure to like, follow, subscribe. If you really enjoy our content, make sure to on YouTube you hit the bell. And make sure you get those notifications on when we do drop content. We're definitely trying to have a more consistent schedule so you know when we drop this content. But just bear with us. We're learning as we go, and just as you guys are enjoying the content, we're enjoying providing you with this content. So thank you guys all for tuning in. If you're new here, we appreciate you guys tuning in as well. We hope you come back. We definitely will be coming out with more content soon after this video drops. So just stay tuned, and we can't wait to drop more content.
Thank you,
and
we're out of here.
Deuces.
You're talking about balls deep.
I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.